Postmodern Art Podcast, a podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wowing the world over the platform they deserve. I am your host, Nathan Ragland, and now that October is over, we can relax with the horror and demons and silly stuff like that, and focus on an artist whose art is based upon horror and demons and silly stuff like that, among other things. Today we have Areg Savchenko, an animator who's worked on Hazbin Hotel, Hell of a Boss, Mayhem, Alien Scoops, and so much more, along with some incredible work in his sleek, stunning style. I was glad to get a chance to talk to Areg, and despite butchering his name in the intro, it's a great, insightful conversation that I hope you'll enjoy as much as I did. Make sure you support him with the links in the description below. If you want to take that support further, at least with this podcast, you can like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever streaming platform you prefer. You can help support the podcast a little bit further by purchasing some of the amazing merchandise in the merch store at pmap.creator-bring.com with a wide, wonderful selection that anyone can honestly wear. And finally, if you want a place to talk more about this podcast and other outstanding ones in the network, you should be a part of the Apocalypse Podcast Network Discord server, where you can talk about this podcast, Stranger the Christian, Hot Goss, Apocalypse Now, all the different podcasts. Build up a nice little community, share some memes, have some fun. That's all it comes down to at the end of the day. In fact, let's hear about another outstanding podcast in the Apocalypse Podcast Network.
Let's teach people something super quick.
Every year, more people die from getting hit on the head with coconuts than they do from shark attacks.
Like dead?
It's not that many, because only 1 or 2 people, I think, die from shark attacks every year. The low teens for the coconuts.
Coconuts are hard.
Teach me something good.
Now on your local favorite podcast thing.
Yeah, all podcast things.
And now, without further ado, please enjoy the Postmodern Art Podcast. Before we get started, I need to ask this. It might be embarrassing for me to ask this, but how exactly do you pronounce your name? Because I do like a little intro thing, and I don't want to butcher it a million different ways.
Trust me, I'm actually really glad you asked that, because people have mispronounced my name as long as I've been alive. So it's pronounced Areg.
Areg.
Yeah, Areg Savchenko. Yeah.
Savchenko. Areg Savchenko. Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous, stunning. Love it. It's one of those, I saw it, and I was like, it's best that I ask instead of just, going in the deep end and just...
Yeah, no worries. I get it. It's a weird name. It's you don't hear it very often, so...
I was gonna say, what descent is it from? It sounds like something that would be in, Poland or Russian or something along that lineage.
I mean, you're not too far off. It's okay. Armenian.
Armenian. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, that's interesting. I assume that's where your family's from or whatnot, or your, at least, parents or grandparents?
Yeah, that's where my parents are from.
Nice.
I wasn't born there. I was born in Michigan and then moved to Canada. But, yeah.
Quite the travels, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Areg, before we really get going, I must ask the icebreaker question I ask for, not every single podcast. This is one that I've actually been starting as of late. So, let's say you get the opportunity to go to a deserted island on your own accords. It's just going to be you there, but you do get the opportunity to bring one piece of media or one piece of art to help make sure you don't go completely insane on the island. If given the opportunity, what would you bring with you?
I mean, okay, it would be a video game for sure, but
okay.
I'm not sure which one. It would need to be one that that I can literally replay infinite amount of times and not get bored.
Right.
That's tough. I don't know. Maybe Smash Brothers. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I've never played any of the Elder Scrolls games, but I know they take a really, really long time to beat, so maybe something like that.
I mean, true, but it's one of those, I've tried to get into them. For certain people, it's you have to, mentally get yourself into it, and if you're not in it from the jump, it's hard to really get into it. But at the same time, hey, a new experience is a new experience, right?
Yeah. Or actually, no. I know what it would be. It would be Spelunky 2, because I can't stop playing that game. That's like I bought the game like a few months ago. I have 416 hours put into that. I can't stop playing it.
Yes.
So yeah, it would be that.
Well, I mean, because like it's a correct me if I'm wrong. It's like it's a dungeon crawler, but it's like it's a generated room like every single time. So you're not really playing like the same level twice. Am I right? Or
Yeah, exactly. It's a roguelike, so
roguelike. There you go.
the game is like randomly generated, so like no two playthroughs are the same, and that's why it's kind of very like unhealthily addicting for me.
I mean, whatever gets the job done, right?
Yeah.
But Spelunky 2, that's your answer. That's what you're locking in.
Yeah, Spelunky 2.
Then if that's the case, I can't think of a better way to start the Postmodern Art Podcast. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Nathan Ragland. Feel free to subscribe or follow whatever streaming platform you prefer. I'm a part of the Apocalypse Podcast Network. Go to apocalypsepodcastnetwork.com to see more about this podcast and other outstanding ones in the network. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PostmodArtPod for future updates and guest announcements, including today's guest. He is an illustrator, storyboarder, and animator who's worked on such outstanding projects just like Has-Been Hotel, Hell of a Boss, Mayhem, and Farfetch, with some stunning shorts of their own, like The Local Freak and LMJ. Welcome to the podcast, Areg Savchenko!
Alright, thank you so much. I am so sorry it's Areg Savchenko.
Areg. Oh, I even asked you when I butchered it. Areg.
It's okay. No worries. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, and thank you for not leaving just like because I butchered your name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It happens.
Nevertheless, I do appreciate you taking time to sit down and chat. I have absolutely loved kind of your production that you've been able to have and some of the stuff that you've been able to have a hand in. But before we really divulge too much into that, I want to go back just a little bit, and I want to know the origin story. What exactly got you interested in art and animation in the first place?
It wasn't really one thing. It was like kind of just like a bunch of things that just sort of all built up onto each other and just kind of kept coming. Like
okay.
Like, I mean, obviously I watched cartoons all the time as a kid. I mean, who didn't? Like, like, earliest memory I can, like, think of is, like when I was, like, I don't know, 2 or 3, like, just, chill out, like, watching, like, Looney Tunes in my parents' basement with my older brother. Like, and we would watch those, like, all the time. Like, we would watch Looney Tunes, we would watch, like, the 90s Spider-Man cartoon all the time.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. And, yeah, I don't know, that's, like, those are, like, some of my earliest, like, fond memories. I remember, I think, like, the first thing that kind of, I think, got me interested in, like, the production of animation was probably Spongebob. Like, yeah, obviously, like many people, I watched Spongebob all the time as a kid. It was one of my favorite cartoons, and, I remember, like, I got the DVD of the Spongebob movie when that came out, and that was, like, my favorite movie ever as a kid, and I would just watch every single piece of content that DVD had, and there was like a lot of behind the scenes stuff that showed like, the animatics and storyboards, and that was like the first time I ever found out, oh, okay, so this is kind of like how cartoons are made.
Right.
And yeah, and it was like all these like rough storyboards of like, the scenes I knew. There was like some deleted scenes, and that just really kind of like fascinated me. And like a little while later, my parents got me like this book called like SpongeBob Exposed. It's like this pretty typical like, like, $5 book you'd get, like, for a kid that just has, like, random trivia about the show. But one part of the book that, like, really stuck out to me was where they showed the entire process of making an episode. And, yeah, they would show, like, not just the storyboards, but also, like, behind-the-scenes pictures of, like, the voice actors, like, the writing sessions, doing the sound effects, like, painting the backgrounds, like, and, like, basically every step of the whole thing. And that was the first time I ever saw, like, just step by step how a cartoon was made, and that was just incredible to me because it was like, it's like, yo, this is how they make my favorite show. This is so cool. And
I envy you because that sounds like something I would just love to like tear my teeth into.
Yeah, and yeah, so that was kind of like the first time I ever had a huge interest in it, and then like one of the other big things that kind of got me into making animation was Newgrounds.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so. Yeah, Newgrounds, that, obviously corrupted my soul like it did many children of the 2000s, but, I was legitimately, like, really amazed just, like, how people were basically making full cartoons by themselves, and, like, obviously, a lot of them looked like really crappy, but it's still just amazing. You can't like deny the effort that's still put into it, and some of them looked genuinely amazing. Like I remember one of my favorites as a kid was Blockhead, because I was like,
Oh, there you
holy
go.
crap, this looks like something that could be on TV, and this is just one guy doing it. This is nuts. And like I realized, like, oh wait, this is a program that you can actually get, Adobe Flash. It's $600. Okay, and so for a long time I just kind of like I just sort of was an observer, but found that stuff really amazing until I finally got a pirated copy of Flash when I was 14, and
Nice.
yeah, that's when I was finally like, okay, I'm doing this, and I just I just made like dumb little animations of like people bouncing, and then I just kind of that was like one of the first times I got into something and I didn't immediately stop, so I just kept doing it.
I mean, I can tell you haven't stopped because you're still having a strong hand with it. I just want to go back just a little bit with that, like the Spongebob and the inspiration from that, especially that DVD. I know exactly what you're talking about because I got that DVD too. And oh my God, the details that they included, like especially the special features, like that was, I can see why that was like basically a cultural gold mine. But then like having that expand with the Exposed, and then obviously, Newgrounds, and then with the, finally getting Flash. I mean, I can only imagine just how fulfilling it must be after a certain point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it's not like I never made animations before that. I tried. I did like these really crappy animations using like Windows Movie Maker, where I would just like copy and paste like Sonic sprites that I would find online. Yeah, like there's a ton of Newground stuff like that. Mine were like really terrible, but. Yeah, but that was kind of like my first taste of it, and I did think it was fun, but it was just too much of a pain in the ass to do.
I mean, fair enough. When did it for you go from just like this general love that you have to a passion that potentially making it your career? Was it whenever you finally had access to Flash?
Kinda, yeah. Like Flash that was like the first time I just had this like program that was like, this is a program where you can make cartoons. It's not like this program that's made for something else, and I just kind of tried to make it work. Like, no, this is like a cartoon program, and I'm like, oh shit, and just kind of like seeing like how much I could actually do with it. I just sort of didn't want to stop. I kept doing like all these little animation practices until like a couple months after practicing, I made my first ever like just full like 3-minute cartoon, which was like this really awful Mega Man parody, but. And like, and that for me, like, even though that took like 8 months to make, I was like, holy shit, I made a cartoon.
Yeah.
I made a full thing. I had voice acting, I had like music, sound effects, like all that stuff. It's a terrible cartoon, but I made it, and that was like, that was like the sign for me. I'm like, I can actually do this. So I just kept doing it. I was like, that was like the basically proving to myself that it was possible.
Yeah, I mean. I'm sure a lot of creators have gone back to like their first like completed project, and they may think, wow, this is horrible, but also be like, wow, I did this, I can do this, I could do more with it. Like, again, opening up just like an entire path that you probably didn't even really consider until you actually did it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like, I don't know, it was just like one of these things where it's like, nah, it just feels like too intimidating until you just sort of do it and don't think about it.
I mean, absolutely. That's something I tried to establish with this podcast. I can tell you right now, if I go back to the first episode, the pilot episode that I had, it was an absolute train wreck. Like, absolutely. But sorry.
No, I was just gonna say like, but finding like the first thing you do terrible, in my opinion, is kind of a good thing, because that ultimately means you're better now. You know way more. So the fact that you see this like thing, this old thing you made is bad, is like, yeah, that just means your standards are higher, your skills are better, like you can make better things.
Exactly. And just like you, like whenever I made that first podcast, just getting it out there and just letting, knowing that I could potentially like do that on a consistent basis was something that I wanted to like dive headfirst into. And so, yeah, I can only imagine how you were in that kind of situation. And I mean, obviously you certainly went down that path and then some, going to college to, studying animation stuff and creating some incredible short films in college and such. How would you describe kind of the experience that you had as you continued down this path into college and such? Like, was it what you were kind of hoping for, or did it like open your eyes to how much more you could do or how intimidating it could be?
So like sort of in between, like when I made my first cartoon and like when I went to college, I made a couple other cartoons. Like almost all of them were like parody videos, just because I was, I was like a big fan of parody cartoons at the time. Like I was a big fan of like Ego Raptor, like
There we go.
like Harry Partridge, or just like these people who like did a lot of parody stuff. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Like the parodies are funny, and yeah, I hate all those videos now. But in doing those, like it kind of just like I was starting to get more used to like making cartoons on a semi-regular basis, and then and like when I went to college, so the college I went to, it's called OCAD.
Mm-hmm.
They're not exactly an animation-centered college. They're more just a general art college, but they had like animation as like a side thing.
Okay.
And the fact that I already made like a bunch of cartoons on my own, like that was kind of like, oh crap, okay, you're good, you're in. So that was nice. In terms of animating, I actually didn't really learn a ton from OCAD. Not that I didn't learn anything, period. Like in terms of like fundamental art stuff and just sort of different aspects of art, like art history, painting, like perspective, stuff like that. Like I learned quite a bit, and that stuff is very important to learn, 100%. So like and there was a ton of great people I met, like people I still keep in touch with. But in terms of just actual animation, a lot of that kind of just I had to sort of teach myself, because it was very clear that the animation program in the school was very new, because it was not very well structured, and I really felt bad for like a lot of the people there who kind of were just getting into animation, because because of like how poorly the classes were structured, it kind of turned them off from it completely, and I can't blame them for it. Like basically like it was a 4-year program. First year there was like an animation course that was entirely optional, and it was just like the like animation basics, which that's fine, it's the first class. Then a second year there was like the required animation course, which was almost the exact same thing, like animation basics again. And then third year it's like, okay, you got to make a film now, and everyone is like, wait, what? Like, wait, what the fuck are we supposed to do?
Talk about just being thrown right into the fire pit. Am I right?
Exactly. So like so like a lot of people like were trying their absolute best, and some people still made some like really fun films, but like it was a very hard struggle for a lot of people, and it turned a lot of people off from it. Like it was like I'm gonna sound like an asshole, but it was easier for me just because I was like more familiar with it. But that was the thing, I was animation obsessed, so obviously I was gonna be okay, because I didn't even really need the teaching.
I mean, that's fair, but I mean, nevertheless, it's a good experience. Plus, I imagine in college, like I mentioned before, you were able to produce some incredible short films and such. The ones that I mentioned before, The Local Freak and LMJ. What were the inspirations behind those shorts?
Okay, so Local Freak definitely had the much more interesting backstory. So.
Ooh.
So like we were told like, okay, you guys got to make a film, and like our teacher was like, it just needs to be under the it needs to be based off of something. That's like the only like rule. It needs to be like like either like based off an art style, based off an arts you like, or based off of something. It needs to like it needs to be. It can't be like a fully original thing. It needs to be like adapted from something else.
Okay.
And my first idea was doing a music video, because like that was something I always wanted to try, and like I found like this one like electro swing song I really liked, and I even got permission from the artist to do the song. And I was like drawing up concept art, and I was really confident in the pitch. And then like a week before we were supposed to pitch the films, my teacher was like, "No music videos."
Ah.
Like, yeah, and I was like, "Shit." And so yeah, I had less than a week to come up with a new idea. And so that kind of so that was a very stressful time for me. So I kind of like tried to go back to like ideas I had like before the music video. Like I did have one idea about doing a music video with monsters, like a metal music video, but I just couldn't really get an idea that I liked.
Right.
And so I just kind of like went to like watching some horror stuff I liked. I watched Friday the 13th, because that's one of my favorite horror like franchises, and that led to me listening to like some Alice Cooper music, because he did music for the Sixth movie, and like one of his songs, Teenage Frankenstein, really, really just like kind of stuck with me for some reason. I really liked the melody, and just something about that song kind of felt like a story, and the idea kind of popped in my head of like this kind of like punk rock girl who's like a Frankenstein monster. and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. I drew it at first, didn't like it, and I kind of like scrapped it, but then the idea just kind of wouldn't really go away, and I had this like sort of image in my mind of her like chilling at a pub scaring people, and that was just really fun. So I just kind of drew the scenario of like her chilling like with a vampire, and that was like what clicked with me, and I'm like, oh, all right, okay, I got something here, and I just kind of kept building about like after that.
Talk about a journey, nevertheless, because good lord, like I can only imagine how much you had invested in that music video. I have to ask, I sometimes dip my toe in the electro swing. What song did you have in mind? Because I'm aware of some electro swing and I absolutely love it. So I'm curious what would have been like made into a music video if you had that opportunity.
The song, it was a remix of like a swing song called "Swingin' Together," and like the dude who remixed it was an artist named Cat in the Hat. But like the ats are like like the at symbol.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to look that up because that certainly does sound interesting. I always loved how unique it was. That was basically like if jazz was made in modern day. I always loved electric swing like that.
Yeah, me too. No, I still love that music, and that song is like still like such a bop. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it someday, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, nevertheless, like even then, what you were able to produce with the Local Freak, especially after all the stuff that kind of just went down with that. I mean, it's still impressive that you were able to make something as good as it was and as creative as it was. I can tell there's a lot of creativity with kind of the stuff that you do. What is it like? You mentioned that like horror, especially with the like Friday the 13th, like your absolute favorite. What is it about it that kind of piques your interest and creatively gets you going?
I mean, Friday the 13th, I guess that was a series that always stuck with me because that was like one of the first horror movies I ever actually kind of witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
It was that and Nightmare on Elm Street that were like the two big ones. Like it was so, like when I was super little, like my brother would watch horror movies all the time in his room, and obviously I wasn't supposed to watch, but like sometimes I would like sneak in and like see like something he was watching on his computer, and there was like two moments in particular that like really just kind of stuck with me. One, it was Freddy versus Jason, and it was the scene like where there's like the boyfriend chilling in bed, and then Jason pops up and starts stabbing him repeatedly, and then like folds him in like half, making like a human sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that scene like scared the living shit out of me, and then like just a few days later, I walked in on my brother watching the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was the scene where Johnny Depp's character Glenn gets like pulled into the bed by Freddy, and then like blood starts gushing out everywhere, and those two scenes like made me like so scared of going on my bed that I slept in a sleeping bag for like a month, like in my room.
No.
Yeah, I was just like I was too scared about being like sucked in the bed or being folded in half or shit like that.
I'm assuming every future mattress you had like 20 different layers to make sure that if Freddy was to come out, if Freddy was to come out, he'd have a little bit of a trek to get to you.
No, I got over that fear. Like about like 2 months later, I wasn't as scared. I'm like, okay, no, that's just a silly movie. But the scenes just always stuck out to me just because of like the how much they like genuinely scared me, and for some reason those two moments just sort of never left my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I like as I got older, I kept watching more of more scenes from like both movies. I don't know. Like, and while I enjoy both, for some reason I just gravitated more towards Jason. I don't know. I think I thought the hockey mask looked cooler. I don't know, just something about this dude running around killing people for no reason I thought was intimidating, but for some reason just really fun to watch.
Oh yeah,
and,
fair enough.
Yeah, and like I just kind of kept watching them, and I don't know. The Friday movies to me are just really really fun horror movies, just because like to me they have like just like the right amount of like having like scary and like a gush and like gory moments, but also like having this kind of tongue-in-cheek self-aware style, and it was just, and that's just like I don't know, I guess a type of humor I guess I really like, just this really dark morbid humor, but like but it just kind of works, and you just sort of buy into it and don't care.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean it especially with like with some of those films, like the way that they're able to extenuate both the horror aspect, but also like some of the humor at times or whatnot. Like it's a unique and golden mix, if nothing else. And I know you certainly have probably taken to that within your own art style and such. Now, for those that might look at your art style, they might think that leads towards the horror, maybe more like a Tim Burton-esque kind of thing. But nevertheless, like with the style that you kind of have, with how rough but yet how clean it looks, what exactly inspired you to lean towards that as your style?
it's kind of like I'm still figuring out my art style. If I'm being honest, I don't feel like
Okay.
I've like I've fully gotten what I want to aim for. But like in terms of just like what I have now, like it's kind of just like a mishmash of art styles that I like. Like obviously yeah, there is a little bit of Tim Burton in there, a little bit of horror because I love Tim Burton stuff. Like Nightmare Before Christmas. That's another movie I used to watch all the time as a kid. Love that movie, but. Like there's a little bit of that as well as just like other cartoons that I grew up watching that I liked. Like the kind of clean style, I guess that comes a lot from like just so many like cartoons from the 2000s, like Powerpuff Girls or My Life as a Teenage Robot,
There we
Dexter's
go.
Lab. Like yeah, like a lot of these like very like angular but very like clean and sharp styles that just look like really appealing and expressive. Like
I'm.
I
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. I was just gonna say,
Uh,
like, I think you certainly nailed that, like, the style of all of them, like, really down to a T. I mean, your icon is a good illustration of that, if nothing else.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess I think the thing I really like about the styles from those shows, I mean, like a lot of them are done like by like the same kind of group of people, like Craig McCracken, Genny Tartakovsky, Paul Rudish, like Andy Suriano, like those people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really have a knack for like creating like these art styles that are like obviously very like geometric and angular, but they're still very loose and expressive, and that's a really hard in between to get. Because they're kind of like they're sort of polar opposites in terms of styles, but like they really make them work, and that's just something I really really admire.
I mean, I can tell that you admire it because it's something that you've certainly taken with you with some of the stuff that you've produced as well. And some of the stuff that you've also had a hand in. Now, one of the biggest opportunities that you had a hand in helping out with was becoming a part of basically the Spindlehorse team. How did this opportunity even come to you in the first place?
It didn't come to me. I beg to be on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Basically what happened was I first found out about Has Been Hotel through Twitter, just 'cause it was when like the cast was first announced for it, like all the voice actors.
Okay.
And just because I followed a few of them, like I followed Rice Pirate, I followed Mick Lauer who voices Husk.
Mm-hmm.
I followed Stamper, like I followed like a few of those people just because I was fans of their work, like through Sleepy Cabin and like their cartoons and stuff like that. So that's how I first found out about it, and like the art style just like really really like stood out to me, like oh wow, this looks so cool. It's like so crazy and spooky and expressive. I really like this, so I just kind of followed the project just because I'm like, oh, I want to see where this goes. And then and then I saw that Viv was interested in hiring animators, and I'm like, I wanted to apply, but I was like really really intimidated to until like my girlfriend and my friends like encouraged me to do it, so I did it, and I got no response. But I really 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 wanted the job, so. Like a little while later, Viv posted like a storyboard preview. It was like the scene like where they're in the limo, and I was like, I'm gonna apply again, but I'm gonna like animate a scene from that just to I guess kind of do my own animation test. I did that. Viv got back to me. She liked it, and I got the job.
There we go.
Yeah, it's something I should also stress that's something I don't recommend doing for people because like while it worked for me. Legally, that's probably something you shouldn't do with bigger projects because there are cases where they straight up cannot accept fan animations as applications.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe don't do what I did. I just got lucky because this was at the time like Has-Been was still kind of small. So. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if nothing else, it's one of those like you took a chance for something that you felt passionate about, and it worked out for you. But that's not gonna be the case for everyone. So just be careful, people.
Yeah. Like no, like absolutely. Like if you see openings to projects you want to work for, apply to them. But apply to them with a good portfolio, demo reel, and all that stuff, and make yourself very easy to contact.
Absolutely.
That's what I recommend.
Absolutely. Now, it's interesting that you bring up the fact that you saw the storyboard and decided to go with the animation, because one thing that I've noticed throughout a lot of your work is you tend to lean a lot more with, while you are multifaceted with all the sorts of different aspects of animation, you tend to lean more towards the rough animation. What is it about rough animating that sort of draws you to that as a position compared to some of the other ones?
I hate doing cleanup.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's, I guess okay, give more an in-depth reason. Like okay, like I like rough animating just because like that's I guess the most raw part of doing a cartoon. Like that's the part where you can just kind of like go nuts and just like sort of scribble and like push expressions and just be like as loose and as crazy as you want to, and you can still make something that sort of works. When you start to like tie things down like with cleanup and like doing like more passes and stuff like that, that's when it, at least for me, it starts to become more boring because you're basically doing the same thing you just did, but a lot slower.
Yeah, no, I can understand where you're coming from, but I mean, nevertheless, like even with the rough animations, you do a great job with expressions more than anything else. Like you've really like nailed that down. I can only imagine how hard it must be for you at times to get like just the right expression.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, but I mean, like, drawing facial expressions to me is just really really fun, and yeah, it's. For me, it's kind of a mix. Like, sometimes it's really easy. Like, I know exactly what expression I want. Other times it's more tricky. It's like, it's a kind of like mix of like both, just like getting the kind of emotion I want out of the character, but also like making sure it's on model. It doesn't deviate too much from the storyboards because obviously I don't want to completely change it. And just yeah, kind of like all those factors combined. I've been trying to, at least. Like a big fear I have is going off model and like making it not look like the character anymore, and that's something that I think I personally need to stop worrying about, because like by worrying about that so much, I end up not pushing things as much as I could. So it's something I'm trying to work on, where I just focus on like the expression first, the pose first, like do all that, like make it as raw and loose as possible, and then after that I'll like tie it down and make it look more like how the character's supposed to.
Right, absolutely. And like I said before, I think you do a great job, like really nailing it in one aspect for another. You've been a part of basically Spindlehorse since has been. How has the experience been this entire time working with Viv and such?
It's been interesting. It's definitely like changed over time.
Okay.
Like working on Has Been was really fun, just because like at the time it was this very like small it had like an audience, but it wasn't like as big as it is now,
Right.
And that's what sort of made it more fun. It was like this just this kind of like fun little like indie project that was that like everyone kind of working on it was just sort of doing their own thing and having fun with it on. It was like and like so working on the Has Been pilot, at least for me, was a lot of fun. Well, when it like actually came out, that's really like, at least for me, when things started to get really really stressful, just because like I don't think like anyone really expected it to like get as much attention as it did, and that like and that at least made like my like anxieties and insecurities go up like so hard.
Right.
I'm like, oh crap, did I even really do a good job? Like, so many people are looking at this, and I was like, I never thought about this. Like, and so yeah, there was like a little bit of a break like in between like when I worked on Has Been and when I worked on Helva, because I didn't work on the Helva Boss pilot. I didn't join the project until like the first episode, and that kind of in between time, at least for me, I'm kind of grateful I had that, because it sort of gave me some time to like chill out and just kind of not worry about that stuff too much. It also, and yeah, and then when I worked on Helva, like. Working on Helva has definitely been the project where I'm trying to like teach myself to maybe not take things as like personally, and not like as close to my heart. Like, obviously, I still love the project and I love working on it, but because I was like I kind of took it so personally, like with the reception Has Been got, that it got to me so much. I'm trying to treat Helva more like, okay, this is a job. This is I spend, a certain amount of hours working on it every day. I do my part, hand it in, and then I go do my own thing.
Okay. No, that's fair enough.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Maybe that's like a more cynical. I've gained a more cynical view because of that, or something like that. But I try not to let it get in the way of the fact that I do still enjoy the project. It's just I gotta, just for my own mental sake, maybe not be as like attached to it.
Right. No, I can totally understand where you're coming from on that one, because it's one of those, like, as much as you love the project, you don't want to kill yourself over the project with how much you feel personally attached to it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. I have to ask, though, like, with all the shots you've had a hand in and all the stuff that you've animated, do you have a moment that you were personally, like, proudest of? Like, you can look at that little bit that you animated, it's like, yeah, this is, like, the best thing I did with Spindlehorse and such.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The fucking Helva episode 4, the shot where the guy goes, money.
I forgot that was you. Oh my god, I have to thank you.
Yeah, like I mean, like obviously that's not the best animated shot I've done, like absolutely not. But I think it's the funniest one, and it's the one that like sticks out the most.
Oh yeah, and I cannot tell you the endless amount of memes alone that have come out of just money.
Yeah, like I'm so glad. Like obviously I tried to make it look stupid. I'm like, oh, I hope people like it, and I'm very glad people did. So I guess yeah, that definitely for me is kind of like the one I'm most proud of. I'm like, holy yeah, I'm so glad people got the joke.
And I'm so glad you took the time to do that, if I do say so myself. Now,
yeah,
obviously, with working with Spindlehorse, that's as an animator, that's not the only thing you've worked on. I can only imagine it may have led opened the doors to some other possibilities, but you certainly worked on some other outstanding projects as well, working with the likes of Mayhem, Ollie and Scoops. I assume currently working on Far-Fetched as well. How have these other experiences just kind of been for you, and has it been more or less like a fulfilling art journey so far, being to work on all these different amazing online internet sensations, if I say so myself?
Yeah, I mean, I am really glad I've been able to work on other projects because, while I do enjoy working for Spindlehorse, it is nice to work on things that do visually look different, just for the sake of not sticking to one thing. Working on different projects, especially while kind of balancing at the same time, has also it's also been a really good teaching lesson for me personally on just knowing my own limits.
Right.
Just knowing how much work can I really take on. What's possible for me to do. What is or isn't too much. Stuff like that. So for all that, I am genuinely very thankful I got to be on those projects. And aside from just a lot of them were fun to work on. Like Ollie and Scoops was that project was both very fun and very hard to work on.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, just because the deadlines for that one were very, very tight, and I was also doing animation and cleanup at the same time. But so that was definitely a lot. But it was fun to work on. I would say, out of all the projects I work on, that was the one where the characters were the easiest to animate.
Okay.
Yeah, just the way the characters were designed with just it was so easy to just immediately get the art style down and just go loose with them and have a lot of fun with the expressions.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine, especially with how expressive those characters can be as well. I can also imagine with some of the other stuff you've had hand in, how much it has also creatively challenged you as well. Because for example, I was talking about Mayhem. Some of the character designs in that one alone are certainly unique to say the least.
Okay, look, I enjoyed working on Mayhem, and Magpie is a wonderful person, but that was the hardest project I've ever worked on.
Oh wow.
The character designs were just so busy, and there was so much things on them that it was just such a pain in the ass to animate.
Honestly, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't regret it, for the record. I really like the Mayhem short that I worked on, and it was definitely a fun challenge, but oh my god, it was hard.
Look, I see some of the different character designs that they've had for that, both with that short and what they've done since with the comics and such like that. I totally understand where you're coming from, but I can also understand when you say you must be at least feel proud that you're able to do it nevertheless.
Yeah, for sure.
And like I mentioned before, you're currently working. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You are currently working on Far-Fetched, which last time I checked should be at least having something soon. I don't know exactly when, but should have something out soon. How incredible has it been to be helping out with this project, especially considering some of the traction it has been getting with the past couple months or so?
Far-Fetched, at least for me, that's been the most chill project to work on.
Okay.
A lot of it has to do with the environment, just because out of all the projects I've worked on, Dave and Ashley are they're the ones I know the most personally. They're really good friends of mine. A lot of people on the show who work on it are kind of all just friends with each other. So it's definitely a very laid back environment where everyone's just kind of chilling and doing their thing, which has been really nice, honestly. So that's been making the project really fun to work on.
Oh, I can only imagine. I've actually had Dave on the podcast as well to talk about that, and I can tell that. Just kind of how he is personally, I can only imagine the environment must be one of the better ones out there, if I do say so myself.
No, Dave's a sweetheart. Yeah. Ashley's wonderful too. Everyone I've worked with on Far-Fetched has been a wonderful person, but so have the people on the other projects I've worked on. I'm not trying to say they sucked, but
oh no, absolutely. This podcast is not to tear down anyone. We're just saying that different studios or different productions have all sorts of different environments, but it's still a rewarding experience at the end of the day. you can correct me if I'm wrong, it must be rewarding for you to kind of see the end product for you, no matter what aspect of the animation you've had a hand in.
Oh, absolutely. Like, when, like, the thing is finished, it's, like, legitimately the best feeling ever, because it's like, oh, holy crap, this whole cartoon is made, and I was, you know, kind of like 2% of it, so that's really cool, you know?
I mean, something 2% really does make a lot of difference. Just look at milk. I mean,
It's true. But yeah, no, it's like at least for me, like finishing is kind of the most like the best part of working on a project, because it's like, holy crap, you made the thing, and that just feels really, really good.
Again, I can only imagine. Now, I have to ask, with all these different projects that you've kind of had a hand in, what has been the biggest lesson for you on this journey that you've had so far? Because again, you talked about, you know, how things have been, you had to learn to not make things personal and learning to do different aspects of it. What has been like the biggest lesson throughout all of it so far?
It's kind of similar to what I said before. I think the biggest lesson I've learned is, you know, obviously work hard and do your best, but also, you know, also make sure not to kill yourself, and, you know, don't feel bad for, you know, doing for setting your own limits and doing self-care. There is like I definitely had this feeling when I first joined Hasbin, and I feel like a lot of young artists have this feeling where they kind of need to work like extra hard on like their first project, because they need to prove themselves that, you know, that you know, they were worth hiring. And I completely understand that, because, you know, you obviously you want to make it clear that, you know, you take this job seriously, which is 100% understandable. But if you burn yourself out, you're going to ultimately end up doing worse work because you're exhausted. So yeah, it's a matter of like basically finding that balance. Like, obviously, you know, do work hard and do, like, you know, do the best you can, but not to the point where you're killing yourself, or to the point where, you know, you're disregarding your own life. You know?
No, absolutely.
Like, yeah, because it's, you know, it's your job. It's but it's also just that, a job. You know, you got your own life. You got, you know, people you should hang out with, things you should do outside of work. And the more you do that, the healthier your life is going to be, and the better you're going to be at your job.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because one of those, like, if nothing else, if you work yourself to the point to where your job just doesn't seem fun anymore, what's the point at that point? You know, like you gotta find the pleasure in it, but you can't like force yourself to love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that was definitely like a really tricky thing when I first worked on Helliva. Like when I worked on Hasbin, like there were deadlines, but because, you know, it was an indie project, and, you know, and it was kind of like, you know, Viv's first like real, you know, big thing, but everyone was kind of working at their own pace.
Right.
And, you know, I was definitely trying to, like, well, you know, get as much done as fast as I could. And because of that, I kind of got the idea, like, oh, I'm a fast animator. I can take on anything. And so when I got on Helliva, which actually has, you know, deadlines and, you know, certain, you know, times we got to meet, I was like, oh, yeah, just give me like a crap ton of work. I can do it. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, I'm like, wait, oh, yeah, that's right. I have a month to do this. I can't do this much. Shit. And, like, you know, I would just be, like, breaking my back constantly. And, like, lately, like, with each episode, I'm, like, understanding more and more what are my own limits, and, like, okay, this is how much I can actually do in this amount of time with my schedule, and making sure that, you know, I have enough time to, like, live life.
Right. Right. And it's a good balance that, while at times could be hard to achieve, anyone can really achieve it if they just take the time to step back and breathe for a moment more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And obviously, like, you've had a good couple moments to step back and breathe, because not only have you helped out with this, you've also done a few personal animations as well. One of the biggest one that I noticed I absolutely loved was being a part of the, what was it, the Collide reanimation project, or whatever it was called, or the rematch. I forget exactly what it was called off the top of my head. But basically the one where you animated Shaq. That was absolutely fun to see.
Oh, the Ultimate Showdown.
Ultimate Showdown, thank you.
Yeah, I've been in a few reanime projects. Like, I was, like those are always really fun, just because, you know, it's just kind of cool to, like, take like a piece of animation and kind of reinterpret it in your own style. And I really love seeing, like, when those things come together, just because it's so cool seeing, like, all the variation, and just, like, every artist put their own spin on it. Like, that's so much fun. I love seeing that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had one artist on here. Their name is Roya Shahidi. They were the person behind one of the people behind the Kirby reanimated project that happened a few years back or whatnot. So yeah, I know what you mean by just seeing all the different, like, reanimated, like the different segments, the different styles and how they either mesh or like how contrasting it is, but yet still get that same image at the end of the day of just how amazing the original project is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, like with the Kirby reanimate in particular, I think it was absolutely brilliant that Roya chose to do the episode that was like all about making a cartoon. Just
Yeah.
that really complemented the whole style, and I do feel really bad. I do feel really bad. Like I've only talked to Roya like a very very little bit, but they've always been very friendly. I was supposed to be on the Kirby reanimate, but I had to drop out just because I was busy, and yeah, I feel bad for doing that, but I don't think they lost anything by not having me. The collab came out amazing.
Oh yeah, no, it still did. I mean, still knowing how your style is and your animation is, I can only imagine what you have been able to bring with the characters of Kirby that are there. So, but I
Yeah,
mean,
honestly, like the shot I was supposed to do, I like the final version way more, like than what I was gonna do. Just because like mine was probably going to be very rushed, just because I didn't have much time.
you know what? Fair enough. Fair enough. But I mean, nevertheless, like, it's one of those, all these reanimation projects. Honestly, if I could be able to, I'd love to, like, make a reanimation project of my own. I just need to know what to do and if I can fund it.
Yeah, I mean, like with reanimation projects, like and like they're not usually paid things. It's just kind of like everyone involved is kind of doing it for fun. But you know that because it's for fun, you gotta also like just rely on the fact that maybe not everyone's gonna like finish their thing super quick because
Right.
Everyone's got like stuff going on in their lives.
Right, right. I mean,
Like,
I've always been one to, if nothing else, like, especially with this podcast or whatnot, I've always been one to champion artists and their style in one aspect for another. That's why I love reanimation projects, because it showcase so many in a short amount of time.
yeah, like I mean, going back to the Ultimate Showdown one, that was one I was like so sure I wouldn't be able to do it. I was so close to calling it quits, but I kind of didn't just because I wanted to be in it so badly because like Ultimate Showdown was like one of my favorite like Flash cartoons as a kid. And I'm like I want to do it. I want to animate Shaq so badly.
I appreciate you adding the Hot Ones meme face to Shaq as well. That is wonderful as well.
Oh, I had to.
It was
Yeah.
was that somewhere in the contract when you signed on to be a part of the project?
No, that was me.
There you go.
Yeah, like yeah, no, like the only like I guess kind of thing with the Ultimate Showdown reanimate was Blabs and Beverly, like the organizers. They did have a thing that was like just for the sake of consistency, make sure the characters have the same outfits like in each shots. Like Shaq's got like the yellow Lakers jersey. Chuck Norris has like the red cowboy sweater. Like stuff like that. But that aside, we could do whatever the hell we wanted.
Yeah, no, that's honestly fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, with all these different hands that you've had with animation and such, and some of the personal ones you've done, I imagine that, behind all of this, there's still a, how should I word this? There's still kind of a love and desire to make something of your own. Is there a concept that you might eventually love to bring to the world as a whole? To make a reality, maybe expanding on a previous project or something?
I really, really do want to start making my own stuff again. It's been really hard. It's just because I'm not really good at balancing multiple projects and like doing like obviously like work and then having enough energy for like my own projects is really really difficult for me.
Right.
Yeah, like I don't know. That's the balance I'm still trying to figure out. Just because I've admittedly for the past little while felt a little bit burnt out when it came to personal work, just because I've dedicated so much time to like my jobs.
Right.
Yeah, and like that, like going back to what I said earlier, that's something I'm trying to like get a better balance of for myself. Just still obviously put job on priority because you got to make money, you got to pay bills, do all that stuff, but have enough energy for myself. So I'm not really sure what I want to do next. Like one thing I did have in the pipeline that I'm not really sure if I'm going to go back to. I did at one point have like a couple follow-up shorts to Local Freak in the works. I had two that I was one that was like really like a 1 minute short, and one that would have been like a full 7-minute cartoon. And I wrote the scripts for those, and I even got like the voice actors to come back to like record dialogue for it. They did an amazing job, but it's one of those things that I kind of lost steam on just because I was so busy with work. And when I kind of came back to it, I started to just really not feel it, and like it just wasn't really something I wanted to make anymore. So I'm kind of putting those projects, I guess, on hold for a while. I want to do something with those characters again because I really do like Kathy and Bailey, but needs to be something that like I'm gonna have if I'm that I have an idea for and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this.
Well, I'll tell you what, with that, how about we delve a little bit into more or less the dream scenario, if I may. Let's say I'm Big Shot Mr. Moneybags. I come to you and I'm like, look, man, the stuff that you're absolutely producing, we cannot get enough of it. We know you have a lot of creative stuff, in the background or whatnot, so we want to help bring it to life. We have access to everyone and anyone. More money than there should be possible. Jesus Christ, the IRS is on my tail, but I'm not worried about it. And you know what? We'll give you unlimited time as well. We found some way to manipulate time so we can let you work on whatever you want to work on. So if given the opportunity, what would be the dream project?
So just fully whatever you want. That's
exactly.
I'm probably gonna change my mind in the future just because my taste and style always change. But like one thing I've always really wanted to do or at least see is make a animated horror anthology show. Basically something along the lines of like Love, Death, and Robots, but horror themed.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, like that would be like the big thing I want to just like basically hire as many talented horror artists I can and just be like, yo, make your own short, do whatever you want. And just put that all together as like a show.
I could recommend an artist your way. As a matter of fact, she's the one that kind of introduced us in the first place, Tipsy. If you pay attention to some of the stuff that she's producing, she's got a perfect short that would work wonderfully in that anthology series.
Yeah, Jelly is like a huge horror nut, so I'm sure she could do something cool. And like, there's a couple like horror artists off the top of my head who I feel like could do really great stuff. David Romero, he's this really like awesome crazy horror artist who has done some animated work, and they're so damn cool. Like, I don't know. He does excellent stuff. I don't know, obviously, David Firth, that's like, he's a big one. Salad Fingers and a bunch of other shorts. I don't know. Lee Hardcastle, he's like a stop motion animator. He's done amazing work. So yeah, that would, at least right now, that would be kind of a dream project for me to just basically get a bunch of horror artists I like and give them like the money to do what they want as like just make some crazy horror short.
I mean, again, especially if you're knowing how incredible some of the horror artists are out there and whatnot, like I can only imagine it could be nothing short of just absolutely amazing and like horrifying, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. And it's something I guess I really want to see happen just because I feel like horror is a very untapped medium in animation. Like it's like there have been like attempts to do it, of course, like the artists have mentioned, and there's there's movies like Coraline which do have a lot of dark horror elements in them. There's also been like some short films like The Cat with Hands and stuff like that. Like it does exist, but it's not as widely known as stuff like as like Disney work or even sci-fi work or like other genres like action, comedy, all that stuff.
Exactly. I mean, nevertheless, just giving people an opportunity to showcase what they can do, I mean, that's something I will always be a huge fan of, so I think it'll be money well spent. But sadly, we have to come down from the dream scenario. We gotta get back to reality, sadly, and I'll ask the ever so generic question. Where do you hope to see yourself, say, 5 to 10 years from now?
I don't know, dude. It's I mean, I guess the most ideal, a perfect dream scenario would be being in a scenario where I can completely make a living off of doing my own work. Because I really do love the jobs that I have worked on, and I'm very, very grateful to have been given the opportunity to work on them. They're projects I legit really love, and I love getting to help make them come to life. That's a fantastic feeling for me. But I do want to do my own stuff too, and that's something I definitely want to try and push more towards. Am I going to be able to achieve that in 5 years? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's definitely something I want to strive for.
I mean, weirder things have happened. I mean, you talked about how much you loved Hazbin Hotel. That was a thing that Viv had been developing for years before she actually got the opportunity to showcase to a lot of people. So if she could do that in a good couple of years, who knows what you could do in 5 to 10 years,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's hoping. Who knows? Maybe in 5 years, I don't know. I'll work at Starbucks or some shit. We'll see.
I mean, I hope not. I hope you at least still get the opportunity to work on the amazing animation you've been doing.
Oh, who knows? What if it turns out I actually really like working at Starbucks and I never knew?
Then
Yeah.
you know what? That's your passion. Who am I to question it? But as we start to wind down this interview, I just have one last question I want to ask you. Obviously, from a very young age, you've been deeply entrenched when it comes to art in many different aspects. How important is art not just for you, but for the world as a whole?
Oh, Jesus. That it's weird because like to this day I still don't quite 100% know why I like doing this stuff so much. It's just kind of one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, this is fun, But I guess I don't know if I like had to pick a reason why I find it important and why I think it should be important is that I think if I had to say I think it's ultimately I think like one of the most pure expressions of humanity because it very much represents individuality and yeah so like that's I think like one of the most important things about art like there is like I don't know because ultimately no matter how hard we all try to relate to one another every single person is different and every single person will not think like one another and that's something that I don't think should be feared. It's not something that I think should be, looked down upon. Like, obviously, there's going to be disagreements over, moral issues or political issues or stuff like that. And maybe those are, like, a little bit, maybe you shouldn't, maybe you should, I don't know. I won't get into that stuff. But in terms of just, like, how you are as a person, art kind of, I think, really shows just how... That's, like, a way for a person to communicate how they see the world and how they think to someone else, to someone who may not quite get it. And I don't know, I believe that gives art a lot of true value because it ultimately helps us sort of understand people better.
Well, there you go. I can't think of a better way to word it right. Wow, words are wonderful. I stumbled that. I cannot think of a better way to word it myself. Apparently, I can't find a way to word anything these days.
Dude, I just kind of made that up on the fly. I don't even know if that made sense.
I think it made sense if it helps you out. So thank you for your input on that.
Yeah, problem.
That was the last question I have. I've already showered you with a bunch of praise, but I'm gonna shower you with more because it's my podcast. I do what I want.
I'm the greatest. Look at my orange skull. I'm cool.
That's a good start. I was gonna say, I have been following your stuff for a good bit. I know when it came to a lot of the Spindlehorse Toons and such, I followed a lot of the artists and seeing what they were able to add to the input, especially some of the stuff that you've been able to help out with the rough animations, really being one of the good cornerstones of a Spindlehorse Toon. It's been incredible to see kind of what you've been able to have a hand in, whether it be with that or some of these other projects that you've had a hand in. And now that I've actually had a chance to sit down and hear your story and stuff, it makes me both love and appreciate what you've been doing so much more. I cannot get enough of your art style. I cannot get enough of the output that you've been able to do since you started on this journey, and I really do appreciate the fact that you've been able to keep going along this path that started from a very young age with Spongebob and such. It's incredible to see what you've been doing, and I sincerely hope for the best with whatever you're going to be doing from here on forth. And I really do hope you get the opportunity to showcase some of your own personal stuff as well, because with what little taste that we've had here and there with the stuff I mentioned before, if we can get just more of that, if we can just get more of what you're good at, I see that as an absolute win.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll also say I wish you the best of luck with this podcast and any other stuff you decide to create, because I believe ultimately everyone should deserves to have fun and live life doing what they love, and I really hope you can keep making that a thing.
Well, I appreciate that, and also, like I said before, I appreciate you. Keep up the incredible work.
I'll try. No promises.
I mean, don't wear yourself down too much. Trust me. Like, I understand. We don't. Yeah. Again, I don't want you to be completely burnt out into nothing but a pile of ashes just by working on animation. But like with what you've been doing, like especially at whatever pace you do find comfortable with, just keep it up because you seriously got some incredible stuff.
Again, I will try.
I completely understand. Now, for those who may not already know for one reason or another, go ahead and plug your stuff for the people at home.
It's hello. So yeah, you guys have heard me talk about myself for an hour and a half, so I'm gonna do a little more. uh, yeah, so I'm Areg Savchenko. I animate things. I have a YouTube channel called The Reggie Man. That's where I will upload any personal work. So check that out if you are interested. There is my Twitter, what handle is the same thing at The Reggie Man. My Instagram, same thing. Like that's like the Twitter and Instagram is like where I just post like art or drawings or like my work on other projects like Hell of a Boss or Farfetched or like anything else I may work on in the future, stuff like that. So check all that out if you are curious. I would, but that aside, just have a good day.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, if you guys are already, please go follow Areg. Seriously, this is the stuff that he's producing is absolutely outstanding. Do you have any final words before we sign off?
I don't know. I guess just to everyone watching, just try to have fun in life. Do what you love, but also just take the time to chill out with friends.
There you go. There we go. That's a good thing to end on. With that, all I have left to say is for the people at home, hasta luego, mi amigos.
Bye.
Tell me what's wrong, tell me it's parts in motion. Sing me a song, tell me your eyes can all open. Show me it all, put me up in the car, you go when you used to call. Show me it all.
Thanks for listening to the Apocalypse Podcast Network. For more great podcasts, go to apocalypsepodcastnetwork.com. And remember, every time you support one of our sponsors, you're supporting the podcast you just heard.
I don't think I've ever really illustrated on this podcast how much I really love and appreciate Hazbin Hotel, Hell of a Boss, all the Spindlehorse Toons stuff. I mean, I feel like I kind of do already, considering the fact that I bring on so many guests that have worked on the projects, that have worked in Spindlehorse and worked on all the incredible shorts that they've been basically pushing out there. But it goes a little bit further than that, in my opinion. See, like, the episodes and the content that's out there and the animation, all sorts of different aspects of it is some of the best that is just out there, period. In my personal opinion, the time, care, and love that goes into it to create an engaging story from start to finish, it's something special. But, and I want to go ahead and say that this is recorded before episode 7, so I'm sure it will be extra heightened by me saying this, but I want to focus less on the actual animation itself, which is odd, because in fact this is an art podcast, and I want to focus just the people behind it more than anything else. See, I wasn't as fully into it. I wasn't as baptized into the Hazbin Helliverse stuff until I saw teasers of the Hazbin Hotel pilot, the little sketch animatics and such. Just that alone had me engaged to see what was going to happen, but then whenever it actually premiered, oh my god. No, I'll tell you what, the first trailer, that's what had me like more than engaged more than anything else. But especially what Viv has been able to create and what Viv has been able to push out there, the high quality of the stuff that she has been able to push out there in one aspect for another. Like, it's incredible that the stuff that is being produced and put on YouTube is stuff that's on like the level that you would see like on any network television these days, like it's outstanding. And knowing kind of the backstory of it, knowing how much love and care has gone into this story, into this universe, years of time and dedication dedicated to make this And the fact that Viv just went ahead and just did it with the love and support that she was able to get, like, that's insane. That is a dream. But on top of that, like, she's able to recognize the talent of other individuals to help make that dream come true. I don't have an exact number, but I would bet I'm close to at least like double digits when it comes to guests I have brought on this podcast that in one aspect or another have helped Viv make this dream a reality. And like each individual person, like while it's incredible that they do get to work with Viv, and you know, I appreciate that, I more appreciate the fact that each of these individuals are extremely talented, amazing at what they do, and are performing like top quality stuff for what they're doing. Like every single one. I mean, Sarah being the first one, that was a big one. You know, Sarah, Dave, Amanda, Areg this week. It's incredible. Oh, Jane, obviously I can't not give love to Jane. I've had her on the podcast twice. How can I not give love to Jane? The fact that these individuals can create amazing stuff on their own, the fact that Viv has given them just a chance to, while going towards a goal that they have to have in mind, the fact that she's basically just letting them just create, and the faith that she has in these people to create the best product possible, that's something to admire. That's something that's absolutely outstanding. You know, this podcast is all about making sure that artists get the recognition that they deserve, that gets the love and support that I feel like they deserve. And I feel like Viv, in a sense, has that same mentality when she brings on people that she knows is going to get the job done, and just knows the talent that they bring with them. You know, it's amazing to know that there is a person out there that is as smart and honestly great when it comes to handling pressure in all sorts of different aspects, because I can only imagine the amount of BS that she has to deal with at times. Good Lord. Major applause to her. But nevertheless, the fact that she's able to recognize amazing talent and give them an opportunity to really flourish with their talent in this little universe in one aspect or another, or at least allowing them to just go forth and do incredible stuff, that's what I appreciate more than anything else that they could be pushed out. That Spindlehorse can push out. So I just want to say, Viv, I don't know if you're listening to this. If you are, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the end. And to anyone that has worked on Spindlehorse Toons, this is a testament of you guys as incredible individuals. You guys are pushing out amazing stuff. And I thank you for taking the time and dedication to do this, because I can only imagine how hard it could be for you guys at times. You know, I talked to a whole bunch of individuals about all sorts of different aspects of working in this kind of industry, especially for an independent project like this. Well, who knows? Still, the fact that you're working on this kind of stuff and getting to also have an opportunity to do some incredible stuff on your own, this is a testament to you guys as a crew. You guys are doing an incredible job. Thank you for what you do. Viv, thank you. Thank you for making sure you keep that dream up and keeping up the incredible work and incredible quality that you do, because I can only imagine how hard it could be to deal with that kind of stuff. And I also want to say thank you on a personal level, because hearing your story and seeing kind of the stuff that you have, it's part of the reason why I have this podcast. Following your dream and just going forth and doing incredible stuff and pushing out the top quality stuff. You know, and I appreciate you giving the time of day for all these incredible people, incredible guests, some that I consider my friends to this day, you know. Just thank you. Keep up the incredible work. I know you don't need a single individual guest to be the one to say that, but, you know. There's thousands of others that are probably saying the same thing. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, you hear it. Know that we appreciate you. And going back to the crew, we appreciate you guys as well. Areg, I know how I've already established this a million times in the podcast, but goodness, some of the animation that goes into something like that, the fact that you're, one of the people that's going to be at the base level with the rough animation, good lord. Especially with some of the expressions and some of the action that goes on, good lord. You are killing it. So thank you. Thank you everyone for hearing my little speech to the void. And my final word is, like Viv, like myself, and like many of the guests I've had on this podcast, just follow your dream, and if it's something you really love and something that you're really passionate about, do not hesitate. The fuck is that word? Do not hesitate to put in the time and effort to make that dream come true. You will be surprised how many people will love and support what you do. You really will.